Everyone, it's Maddie.
And today we're going to be chatting about Secrets by Jacqueline Wilson. Secrets is the story of India and Treasure, who make friends one day when India is walking through Treasure's estate. In the way that kids do, they don't see class, they just see a best friend. They're getting to know each other despite both of their parents or their family situations not enjoying the idea of the two of them hanging out together. And then when things get serious in Treasure's life, she runs away and it's India who solves the problem. India decides that to fix the problem, she is going to hide Treasure in her attic, just like Anne Frank. And so she sees no problem with this.
If you've read Jackie's autobiographies, then you'll know that Anne Frank is a really influential figure for her as well, as she used to keep a picture of Anne Frank by her bedside, just as India does. The writing style of Anne Frank's diary really informs India's in particular. I actually read like 100 pages of Anne Frank's diary whilst I was reading this book to see if I could get any comparisons, and they were so similar. So that was a really interesting and different style for Jackie that I hadn't seen before, although Treasure definitely takes a different approach and these two girls' voices are quite different.
So one of our favourite parts of this story is the diary format in general. It's really interesting to see the contrast between the two girls' writings because you really see the difference in their education, in the way that they express things.
A large element of this book is Treasure's Nan and her family, and that's who Treasure goes to stay with for a lot of the book before she is a refugee with India. This is such a warm environment. It feels very classic Jackie to put this kind of odd family together that just love each other and support each other.
They can never stay that way for very long though, otherwise you don't have conflict. It kind of reminded me of the end of Cookie when she's just living with her mum and it's all sweet and delightful. Basically, whenever you get like a glimpse of to what the best version of a character's life is, that's always my favourite part.
Our next favourite moment is of course the whole hijinks of the story in India hiding Treasure in her attic. This is so fun because I think it plays into a childhood fantasy of having your best friend living with you, but rather than it being something that the parents are aware of, it's a hider in the house situation where she has to sneak around when India's maid is still around and she can't go to school, otherwise she'll be seen. So she's trapped in the attic for a couple of days, but to actually live the situation is very different from what you dream about as a kid. So seeing that contrast between how they think it's going to be and how it actually is for Treasure is really interesting.
And that leads quite nicely into our discussion questions. The first one being, how long do you think they could have feasibly kept this up without all of the hijinks going on? Because India has the trouble with a drunk father who might be having an affair with her nanny, and obviously the police are searching for Treasure. So if you take that away, like, how can friends stay together, especially when they're so different? The idea of the fantasy of a child coming up with this idea that they think is going to solve the problem, but obviously they haven't thought of all the ramifications of doing that thing, is another key thing that Jackie really plays with in a lot of her books actually, when you come to think of it. Running away and trying to survive without parental help is something that happens, I guess, later on with Lily Alone.
In Best Friends as
yeah,
well.
That's true. So Secrets really tries to touch on the ramifications of things and what is going on behind like this cute friendship dynamic of trying to keep someone in the attic. You really get a glimpse of like the press is completely falling all over this story and the police are out searching for Treasure and the people that are wrongly accused of kidnapping. It escalates very, very quickly beyond just this children's fantasy, and somehow it's managing to do like these two things at the same time.
So another one of our questions was what you thought of that spiral of things going wrong for them and how quickly it meant that Treasure actually had to put herself in danger rather than staying in this situation. I think that was a really brave decision of hers, just knowing that it was not light at all at the end, and I kind of forgot how quickly it all built up to a situation that no one really wanted.
So whilst it is kids being kids and living this fantasy, it's also again like kids having to be adults, especially on Treasure's side of things anyway.
I guess we haven't really touched on at all why Treasure had to run away in the first place, and that's because she was in an abusive situation with her stepfather Terry. We've talked about abuse in Jackie's books before, particularly in The Bed and Breakfast Star. It's the same situation actually of a stepfather being like abusive towards his stepdaughter. Unlike The Bed and Breakfast Star where it's very off the page, this one is overt. The first scene is actually Treasure being abused, being hit with a belt buckle across the forehead, and in the picture she's dealing with this scar throughout the whole book, and she talks about it a lot actually, about how that's like changing her view of herself. Secrets does something different that The Bed and Breakfast Star does, takes it one step further, especially when in the TV show bit where Terry is trying to like coax Treasure back to their family and he's putting on such a front. It's like, it's awkward.
It's disgusting. Like, it's slimy, especially when you know there's also a young baby in that that new family as well, you can't help but feel very, very unsettled for that child's future too. So how did you feel reading this situation, knowing that Treasure would have to go back there? Did you feel convinced that she was going to get help and be able to get out of that situation eventually?
Another discussion point is just how different India and Treasure are.
The way that they help each other from their strengths of their background, and the way that they can support each other and prove that they are more than wherever they came from and that together they can get somewhere even better. Where do you see these characters being friends in the next 5 years?
And at the end, they do give you an epilogue, like telling you how Treasure and India managed to continue to stay in each other's lives despite their differences, which is such a difference from Bad Girls, where at the end you're told, like, oh, Tanya and Mandy never see each other again. Secrets takes things to unexpected places, and it was definitely an interesting reread at an older age, as all of these books are, but this one particularly just because I remembered so much of it, that reading it again and just seeing how it compared to Jackie's other books, like reading them in the context of everything is so different from reading them isolated.
Secrets is an exhilarating read in the way that it makes you worry for these characters so completely, and it's definitely one of our favourites.
You've just got to remember that friendship is still at the core of this, and that's something that Jackie writes super well.
So let us know your reactions to reading Secrets in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.
We'll see you next time.